The Drum Candy podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into episode 18 of the Drum Candy podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson. I'm coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This week's guest is veteran touring drummer Kevin Murphy, who's currently out on the road with Jon Pardi. He's been down in Nashville for a while working that scene. But prior to Jon Pardi, he toured Randy Houser, and then I believe prior to coming to Nashville, he was in the alternative band Tonic. So lots of knowledge in this conversation. I want to focus mostly on what's it take to be the pro level touring drummer, because there's a lot to the gig beyond just getting out there and playing the songs. And of course, we talk about some gear. This is a long one. So without further ado, let's get to it. Kevin Murphy.
I will answer any question honestly.
All right then.
And abrasively, most likely.
Let's begin simple. How's the live show situation going now that everyone is kind of back and rolling? Does it feel normal or is it strangely different?
I don't know that normal is the right word for what's going on. And I don't think that normal will exist again, like ever. I think that what was touring in 2019 and how that felt, and honestly, I think touring is kind of done being what it was several years ago. And even pre-COVID, some stuff had changed about it to where it's not just an inclusive party anymore. Now, for the first time in my life ever, and I've been touring since 1993 regularly, for literally the first time ever, there are political flags flying at concerts. So it had already shifted. But COVID really put a nail in it. So I don't think touring will end. But I think that the inclusivity and the closeness of it, I think that has shifted. And now it's certainly a different vibe backstage. There's there aren't people just kind of milling around. And it's been a long time since I've been in a band that kind of partied backstage anyway. I think there's 3 single people on our whole tour, on our whole crew, so it's not like, oh, there's partying and raging. But even if I were in a boy band right now, there'd be nobody backstage. Some venues have masks, some don't. Some have, crew mandates that the local crew leave the stage when we come for sound check, and some don't. We're just kind of, I think everyone in our camp, I know everybody in our camp is vaccinated. So we're just doing our thing. And hopefully if somebody gets sick, that person will go home or quarantine wherever we are. And maybe we'll stop the tour. I don't know. It's weird being a hired gun because you find out last. And people think, oh, hey, they think we're in the know, and people will send me songs to give to Jon. I'm like, I'm not giving. If I had that power, I would write songs with Jon. I write songs too, and Jon and I are friends, and we get, but I think most of the people in Nashville are like me, where they kind of find out. We don't find out first, I'll find out when the public finds out if there's been some shows canceled because of COVID or whatever, But the attitude of touring has definitely shifted in the last few years, and COVID kind of definitely put it pulled the final card on a shift in it. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to just kind of 400 people in a meet and greet and stuff like that. We have a bar that travels with us, and if friends come out or whatever and they're vaccinated or family or whatever, I know that, JoJo's coming out with me next week and she'll just cram in my bunk and stuff. We can still do fun stuff. But I think that a lot of there's always kind of a tension now as to, is something going to get canceled? There's bands and groups in Nashville that have called it quits completely. And just been like, we're tired. It's been 2 years. We're just going to take our money and run, so that's happening too.
Do you have to have like a sub ready to go in case you test positive or something? Seems like a strange situation to be in.
Well, it's an interesting, no, technically, but I think all of us know who the likely, in Nashville at least, we all know who the likely candidates are to sub for us. Now, I'm in a very, very lucky situation because two of the crew members, well, one is Will Easterwood, who has been with me for a couple of years now and is our stage manager and drum tech. And he has covered for me before when I went to the hospital for something couple of years ago. And next week, a new crew member comes on who is one of my other very good friends, who is also Jeff Brown, who is also a phenomenal drummer. Okay. So I'm kind of covered if something happens to me. I had an emergency a couple of years ago and went to the hospital, and Will played 2 nights for me. And I don't imagine there would be some mad dash to get somebody to fly in, But most people in Nashville kind of know, like if Redmond probably knows in his mind that me and probably 5 or 10 other people he knows, he would call. But the problem is most of the guys on the level that aren't going to freak out at the crowd or aren't going to be weird about the gear, and they're just going to fly in and sit down at whatever they're given and do a Jason Aldean show or a Jon Pardi show or a Dierks show. Most of the people that can do that well are on other tours.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's some guys in town that can cover it, and I think everybody has a running dialogue in their head like, oh, if I get sick, I think, but no one has really talked about it like, hey, learn my sat. Are
you being extra careful in your day to day to make sure you don't get exposed?
Yeah. JoJo and I spent. We saw I saw during the entire bulk of 2020. I saw my daughter and Ben Caesar. It's kind of weird.
That's a small circle.
She and I, we stayed really safe at the house, and we Instacarted our foods, and we were very careful, and we mask out now. But I think that ultimately, I don't know that there's a way. Not to turn this into a whole different thing, but had everyone just been reasonable about this from the beginning, we wouldn't be dealing with that. So I don't know that there's a way now to avoid, herd immunity is a practical impossibility at this point. So I don't know that we're not going to get to the point where just everybody has gotten it. And I think that I know that at some point, we're going to deal with it. We're as safe as we can be. I'm in Tennessee, where there's a lot of people who kind of don't believe in science, and are kind of screwing it up for everybody else. But in our little circle, in where we live, it seems pretty reasonable. I haven't seen a lot of anti-mask meltdowns in public. So we just try to stay here. We don't go out a lot. We when we do go to dinner or something, we try to sit outside, and but we're vegan, so we have like 3 places we can go eat. Right. So we kind of hide. So we don't go to. We've had some shows that we wanted to go to that we didn't, and we've had some. We've been asked to come to events and stuff that we haven't gone to specifically because. And I'm gonna look on I think we looked last week, and there was kind of no rapid tests around us. I think I'm gonna, either online or whatever, buy like a bunch and just have them. And we try to make sure that I'm feeling good before I leave, because I don't want to we went to Alaska last week, and one of my biggest concerns were I don't want to pop positive in Anchorage and be stuck
for 2 weeks
in a really in a really kind of rural area of Anchorage, outside of Anchorage for 2 weeks. So that scares me. But we're real safe when we're here, or relatively safe. We already don't do a lot. I'm here. I stay here. She's like a total introvert, so we stay pretty small when we're in town. We're not like Kia. We don't hit the We don't have bars to go to, you know. I live vicariously through Keo now. He can go drink.
I'm sure he's got the antibodies. He can share some with you.
Keo, I don't think anything can kill Keo Shroud.
Is the cycle still like Thursday through Saturday or Wednesday through Saturday?
Mostly in Nashville. I was actually texting, name drop, boink. I was texting with Ray Luzier last night about I was doing a session, and just the heaviest drum I've ever felt was on this session, and the producer was like, "Oh, that's Luzier's," and I was texting him like, "The hell is this? And why is it here and not at your house?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gone until October something. I'll see you when I'm back, and maybe you and JoJo can come to the house, you know, or whatever." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember. Rock bands don't go home."
Right.
and you know, but Nashville is typically either a Wednesday or a Thursday night bus call at midnight, which is different than New York or LA or Pittsburgh or wherever, Atlanta, because we actually have all the buses. Like if you hop on a tour, you're flying from Pittsburgh to the first show and then getting on the bus.
Right.
And when I was in Tonic and everybody was out of LA and I was out of Virginia, we would all fly to like Chicago, and then the bus, we would do a show, and then the buses would be the rest of the city. In Nashville, there's 3,000 buses that leave this town every Wednesday and Thursday night. You know, they're all west of town or north of town on the same like road. They're just lot after lot of tour buses. And we all go there and park our cars and hop on and go to sleep. Usually it's midnight, Wednesday or Thursday, and then we're back Sunday morning. This next run I'm on, our buses haven't been home in a month because we've been out west and Alaska and Boise and stuff. So we keep flying. The bus will pick us up. I think we're flying to LAX. The buses will be there waiting on us down the street on La Cienega or something. And they'll swing through, grab us. We'll all pile on, and then, you know, make a snack, pour a drink, whatever, go to sleep and wake up in Fresno. And then we're going to do 10 days, and then I'll fly home, and then I'll fly to Pennsylvania and see if the buses will drive all the way across the country and meet us. But yeah, it's weekends typically. Usually everybody has one long run per year. That's like 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks is a long run for you.
Yeah. I remember in Tonic we would do months, and it was like you could, or that era of my life. I remember the band I was in prior to that. You didn't have a home return date. You would fly home when you had a couple of days and an extra $600 for a plane ticket. You know?
Let's talk about your current touring kit, since we're in that mode. Is it different than pre-COVID, or is it the same rig?
It's about the same, because I think this year, honestly, when we started, I was like, oh, well, let's not change anything. For a couple of reasons. The first one was, this thing's liable to the rug's liable to get pulled out from under us, because we are now living in a country where there is logic and intellect and science, and then there is the absolute opposite of that. And, where we tour in a genre where there's a lot of people that kind of they're not going to vaccinate, they're not going to wear masks, they're not going to care about the people around them, they're going to do what they want to do. And to them, that's patriotic. And we're going to, I thought, well, we might get 2 shows and get the rug pulled out from under us, or 10 shows, or 3 months. So I didn't want to change anything and make it, I didn't want to, because a lot of people don't quite grasp when they're like, I want to add this, or I want to add that, or why don't you change stuff? And they don't grasp that if I add one snare drum, I'm going to probably next year add a 10-inch tom. So I'm going to have 3 up, 2 down. If I want to add that, my monitor engineer has to change his desk, because we are maxed out for channels. So if I add one more channel, he needs a new console, and then, or at least an expansion card. And those are $15,000 or whatever. There is a whole other cable that needs to be running. Right now, we have a loom. We have, basically a subsnake that sits on my deck that I fill up every input, and all of that goes to the monitor board. Well, if I add one thing, they need to redo that. to make room for that. And, everybody, and then everybody has to get a new mix with that thing that I just added.
Your 10-inch tom.
Yeah, one extra snare. So typically, that's why I don't change things in the middle of something, right? They have it set. When this touring year is over, I will change the whole kit. I didn't want to ask for a drum set in the middle of COVID. Ludwig, technically, I don't know, the word owes isn't really accurate, but, I have an endorsement deal with them, and it's like every other year, every third year, I get a certain amount of stuff. And Uli and those guys are amazing. And, he would have scrounged up something if I'd have said, hey, I really need whatever. But why? I just certainly didn't need it in 2020. And they sound great. I like Red Sparkle. And I didn't know if we were going to get a tour. I thought we might get to July and it gets shut down, And here we are, heaviest month of the year. I leave tomorrow for LA, like I said, and I'll be gone for 10 days. And we have 15 shows after that, sporadic until the end of the year for us. So it looks like we're going to get through it all, maybe, or most likely. Then I'll change it. So over the winter, the monitor engineer already told me, Elliot already said, I'm getting a new console and blah, blah, blah. So I might call Uli and be like, hey, I want one of those Citrus mod, whatever. But I might just get a red tom and add it to and just I'll be the best endorser ever who only got one kit.
That's a pro tip right there. Don't be a pain in the ass.
Don't be a pain in the ass. I haven't talked to Chad Brandolini in months, and I desperately need sticks. I spoke to Chris Brady at Aquarium the other day, and he was like, "Man, we're resources are expensive now, and just getting the aluminum to make the extrusions to make the hoops." You can't find it. So he's got to send me what he can, of the heads I need. But I keep going to Forks and just buying my stuff. And, Stanky said the same thing about, some Sabian. So I'm trying not to be a pain in the ass and changing. I'm not changing anything. I'm going to do PASIC this year. So I think Sabian's going to send me some stuff for that. But I'm not changing stuff on the kit. I'll deal with it in the winter.
What is the rig? It's a Ludwig Classic Maple?
Yep. Plain old Red Sparkle. Long time ago, I had this really, I had a sonar kit that was built for Danny Carey. And nice. I think it was supposed to be his on the tour that he used that Peisty kit. Mm-hmm. I remember. I think it was something they built that was going to might have ended up. I ended up with that kit, and I remember when I played it, it was a great kit, but I remember feeling not fraud isn't the word, but I remember feeling like an asshole. Because I remember playing it thinking man, if somebody likes me or this kit and they're like, oh, I want to have that, they're going to drop $15,000. They're not going to be able to, A, they're probably not going to be able to afford it. But B, I'm not sure you can even order what I ended up with. It was this spiral cut walnut root thing with nickel hard. It was all this crazy stuff. And I was like, there's no way a normal person that isn't a heart surgeon can get this kit. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that when Uli and I were talking about my first kit with Ludwig, I was like, well, I already got this 4-piece maple, this classic, just 6-ply right up the middle red sparkle kit. Can you just add some stuff to that? And it was sure. Oh, okay. And I like the fact that if some 14-year-old is at our show, or 40-year-old for that matter, if somebody's at our show and they're like, man, that sounds great, I dig that dude, I want to play those. I like the fact that they can find the drums I play anywhere.
So no custom mods, edges are custom mods, standard.
And edges are standard. I think our tom mounts are those indie mounts now because they had the triad ones on it, and I'm not sure. No, they didn't. They had rims on it, and I just wanted less metal showing. And at the time, for whatever reason, I had those indie mounts at my house or whatever, and I was just like, well, let's just use these and put them on. But That's it. No mods. My snare drum is scrolled. Jon's, Aldrich scrolled it. But other than that.
What is that? Is that a Black Beauty?
Oh, yeah. 6.5 Black Beauty. People ask me if it's an old one, but it's not. It's, 5 years old or whatever. And Jon, he did tell me that was the first quad scroll he did. So it's got 4 layers of scrolling. And I think only me and Sutter have that.
Nice.
Sutter's got that. He's got, I got that drum in these $20,000 shoes. No mods. It's a 12, a 13, a racks, and a 14 and a 16 floors. And that just ended up like that. I actually always wanted to go like 12, 13, 15, 18, because I like that big jump at the bottom. But these work great. We tune them, Bear tunes them great. I think a 10 will be cool up top. And I'm probably just going to keep them like that. I have a 20 at home. I have a 20 here, a 20-inch kick to go with it. But yeah, that's it. And I have the 13 that I use for the side snare that's tuned down is like a student model, I don't know, steel something. It's a Ludwig. It's like the cheapest student model snare you can get. It's 13 inches and it's great. And I didn't even order that for my deal. I bought it at a Guitar Center. I was on the road and I was like, it's $110 or something.
What is the kick at 22?
22-inch kick. And now I'm using the new kick pedal, that Speed Flyer, which is awesome. Waiting for the double because I don't play double kicks well. And Jon did a tribute song on that Metallica tribute album. And Miles did a bunch of double kick stuff on when he tracked it. So now I've got to figure out how to do it.
Nice. That's the worst. Double kick.
Yeah.
I can't do it either. I've tried for 30 years.
I can't do it. I'm okay. But yeah. And so those are the drums. That's it. Those drums. And I have a big, what looks like a gong drum, but it's just a hollowed out shell that's hiding an SPD in it. So when people see the kit, they think I have a gong drum to my left, but I don't. And I have a bunch of complex HHX Sabians with a couple of other borrowed plates because I can't get a big stack of stuff from them right now, and I don't want to ask for it. I'm probably going to try some Artisans or something like that, but I love them. Aquarian Super 2s up top, Classic Clears on the bottom, the Force 1 on the kick, and the Super 2s are, when people are like, inevitably they never try that head. They always try like Response 2s or whatever, and everybody I talk to them is like, go to that one. It's a 5 and a 7 mil, so it's like it's got a little more to the tom. And Vader, I was using West Sides, but now I use just the long wood tip 5Bs, like the 5B Extreme or something like that. I don't know.
Do you keep a spare snare?
Yes, it's the ones that are kind of a Black Beauty, but not a Black Beauty. I forget what they're called. Black Magic.
Okay.
Yeah. I got it sitting there, and I posted a clip the other day of Bear swapping it out when I blew the strands out of my Black Beauty, and it's awesome drum. And it just sits right here, and my extra kick pedal sits right next to my main kick pedal. So it can hit the corner of my kick drum if I need it. But yeah, I keep a spare on deck always. But yeah, that's it. It's a really simple rig. I don't have a lot of weird stuff. I might add some weird stuff later in life, but for now, it's fine.
So a couple things. Black Magic versus Black Beauty. What do you hear that's the difference?
Well, that's a tough question for me because my left ear is shot. So I don't hear a lot out of that one. And my right one, I don't, depending, it so much depends on the head and how you're hitting it and how it's tuned that honestly, you tune a Black Magic really, really well. It's a great damn drum. And I don't know that, I'm sure there's some people that, I'm sure if you put the exact head with the exact tuning and everything on it and you hit it the exact same way, I'm sure there would be some notable difference, maybe a little more brightness or a little more, depth or whatever. But for me, they both sound great. They both have that metallic honk that I like. The Black Beauty, we need to moon gel it a little bit because my front of house guy, gripes at me for having the Tom Lord algae. Bong.
It's the same head on both drums?
Yep. I try to keep them tuned exactly the same as well.
And what is that head? High energy?
High energy. And I reuse those because they're the secret weapon, man. No, not enough people know about those drum heads. We just changed my primary out, and the last time we changed it was mid-19.
That's crazy.
Now, of course, it just sat in a case for all of 20, but it had 6 months of touring in 19, sat on the drum for a year, and then 5 months of touring this year. And finally I was like, yeah, change it out. And it didn't break. We just changed the other heads out. I went to Forks and bought all the tom heads. And while we were changing those out, Bear changed those out. And I looked over and I saw like, another box. And I looked at it and it was like, high energy. And I was like, oh, well, let's just swap them all out. But it wasn't even, it hadn't lost its tone. It wasn't broken. It was fine. I could have played it for, a couple more months. And I've just swapped it out for the hell of it.
So by comparison, how long would like a texture coated single ply last for you?
On a snare, longer than people would think. A lot of people don't realize that the reason they go through those single ply heads, either coated, ambassadors or texture coateds or whatever the Evans thing is, those single ply clear or coated heads. What a lot of people don't realize is the reason they burn through them real fast is they're not tuned up high enough. Like when they're tuned like mid, when you're trying to go for that Picaro thud, that thoom, it will pit and you'll destroy a single ply head like that. So my Tom's single ply head, 4 shows.
Okay, that's quick.
4, 6 shows. The Super 2s, a month and a half. I can get out of them because I don't hit that hard anymore. I used to hit like a gorilla, but now I kind of don't. But on the snare, it's high enough to where it doesn't really pit, even when I use it. So longer than people would think, but not as long as the high energy. So maybe I'd get like half a month out of it, and then I'd have to get rid of it for sure.
Snare tuning, you say high. What does that mean by comparison? Do you have any kind of?
I don't have a note, but since I use 6.5s, like anywhere that gets towards where you would put a 5, So like if you think of medium tuning, as finger tight and then a full turn on every lug. If you go a little bit up from that, it's so tight that it won't pit when you hit it. So when people think of toms, I try to say like any bop guy, really, Elvin toms, and if you're thinking about rock and I go, oh well, bottom. You could put a single ply head at that tension where it goes boom on that 10 or 12, and if it's ringing like that, then it's tight enough to where you're probably not going to pit it. But if it's low and you're going for that thud or you're going for that gad thing, you're going to pit it if you hit hard. Like, there's no way around that. And it's cool if you like the way they sound like that. Cool. If you want a real thud, just get like pinstripes or response 2s or whatever. Just get something with 2 plies and or even more than that, and tune them down.
So do you tune or treat your drums differently live versus than you would for a recording?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I make them sound the way I like them, but I am a little more panicked about it in the studio. Live, when Bear changes the heads, or we call him Circus Bear. When he swaps out heads, I just trust him. He knows that I like fourths between everything.
Okay.
And I don't need them to be to a note that the band is playing in or whatever. They change keys. I don't care about that. But I like it to go boom, 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 boom. So I like fourths. I like Here Comes the Bride between every drum, and I like fourths between the resonant head and the batter head. So the resonant head is a fourth up from the batter head, and that batter head is the resonant head of the next drum down.
Ooh, okay.
See what I mean? See what I mean?
Some Illuminati stuff here.
If you start on like your bottom floor tom,
yeah,
and you have your bottom floor tom batter head, and it feels right, and it's nice and round, and it's exactly what you want. The resonant head is a fourth up from the batter head.
Okay.
That resonant head is the same note as the next drum up's batter head. And then you go a fourth to that resonant head. And then the next drum up is the same note as, you know what I mean? So then they all just, when you hit them together, they go, ooh, ooh, ooh. They're like little baby chords. And it just pleases me. And Bear knows that that's what I like. And he knows that I like the snare higher than he does, but he listens to the front of house guy who's like, I want it to be a little less cracky, and he'll drop one lug closest to me and make it a little more fat. But in the studio, you know, I have a lot more snare drums sitting there. I have sometimes I'll use a head that I wouldn't necessarily use live, like a single ply or whatever. So I definitely tune them a little bit different. But honestly, I always still go for that fourth unless somebody's just like, hey, I want you to do X. And a lot of times you'll have producers that are just, it seems in Nashville you have one of two kinds. You have some that don't care and they let you do your job and they let you tune it up or let your cardist tune it up or whatever, and they trust that you're going to make it sound good. And they kind of don't care because they're going to sound replace you anyway.
Right.
with samples from like Chad Cromwell or whoever. Or the other guys that think they're like, that are hyper obsessive about, it's really, I got to get this, I would like you to use this other snare. And I really, can you take that lug, just tune it down an eighth of it, and it's like, man, you guys ain't making, Can't Buy Me a Thrill. Like, you guys aren't making Asia, and even if you were, they weren't. Like, I can hear pedals squeaking and out of tune lugs on all classic records that we all love. I can hear pedals squeaking on Zeppelin records, and so, you either have the obsessive ones that are like, they're making more work than they need. They're the guys that will have you do the song 46 times when it was great on the second pass. And it was really lively on the third pass, then the bridge was the best, but the second pass was kind of overall better. Maybe you want to edit that, but we're done.
20 more.
We're done. And they'll be like, no, because they want to tell the client they spent 17 hours doing drums or something, whatever. So you really only have those two guys, the sound replacing dudes, and the guys that are in the men and women in the middle that are producing, that I like working with, are typically the ones that don't have huge budgets and they don't have a lot of time anyway. So they're just like, make your drums sound good. Here's the song. Let's rock.
Right,
and those are the ones that are like, when I get a producer like that, I'm like, thank God for her. Cool. Let's fucking do that song, So,
is there still an element of show and tell in the studio? I always heard that that's the vibe. You got to have the Black Beauty. You've got to have a Superphonic. I think it all falls into falls into the same two categories.
Yeah. The ones that are on this end don't care, and typically they'll be like, just use the house kit because it's dead and whatever. Right. And the ones that are really obsessive are like, oh, don't you have that? Don't you have a Tama bell brass? And you're like, no, I didn't have an extra $5,000 to spend on an overpriced drum. Thanks. No, I don't have a Tama bell brass. And guess who's never going to own a Tama bell brass? Because if I have $5,000, we're going to go to Costa Rica, and that drum is going to stay on the shelf somewhere. And I know there's a lot, Illich and those guys, like they'll, they have those drums, but it's an investment. It's like buying a bottle of wine from 1920 or whatever. They're like, oh, well, this is going to increase in value in them by the next time I sell it. So, but I don't have the knowledge, the money, the time, or the energy to kind of chase that. I have gone into Nelson and just been like, I gotta have that. I saw those red. Here, I'll clear you off space right here. I walked in a couple months ago and I saw those. The Centennial, I think there were bicentennial drums that Ludwig made in 1976, where they made like 6 months. They made like the acrylic kit that was red, white, and blue. Right. And they were awesome. And I saw them and I was just like, I called JoJo. I was like, I got to get this drum set. I got to have, and I I went in and I brought a drum set. I brought a set of 72s that I had gotten there a couple years earlier to Bryson. And I was like, what can you do me for? And he was like, I'll tell you what, you give me those drums and $500 or $300, whatever. Like, we worked a deal, and I came home with them, and they're downstairs now. But like, you know, I forgot what the question was. I went on a tangent. Oh, it's a show and tell thing. Like, you sometimes I'll roll in with those, and people be like, oh, those are cool. But like, I don't have, most people, some of those big sessions where they're going to have you do 30 takes because they need to justify renting, you know, sound emporium for a day or whatever, or they need to say they worked harder on something than they did. I did 4 songs yesterday in 2 hours for somebody, and I think I did 2 passes on one of the songs. And the rest of that time was talking about it and explaining it and listening to it and, oh, back that up and let me hear what the guitar's doing, and making a note to go, you know, booms, because the guitar goes, like, oh, okay, he's doing triplets, I'll do that. But if you do that and you pay attention and you do your homework, well, then you just go play it. The only difference is there's time banging away in your ear and you're on drums. So I would rather just do the homework, do it once or twice or maybe 3 times, and then just be done. You know, but a lot of people don't do that, and they want to see the $4,000 snare drum and the, oh, I got these A's from the 50s. It's like, cool, I'm going to shatter those.
True.
Those are great. Yeah. Oh, you have one of Elvin Jones's rides? That's awesome. Hold it up. Let me hear it with my finger. And then please put it over in the corner, because I don't want to break that. You know, like, you know, but so yeah, there is the show and tell, but I also don't spend a lot of time in the studio. I wish I did. I'm better in the studio than I am live. It was kind of my bread and butter for a while, but in Nashville, nah, you're the guy or you're not the guy. And in here, there's like in-town dudes, and there's touring dudes, and there's session dudes. And some people can cross around, and I do a little bit. I don't play in town because I don't have the those guys that, and girls, men and women that play down there. I say guys as a catch-all, but a lot of badass women in our town playing drums. The men and women that play down there have way more, they have a wealth of knowledge that I don't have. Somebody can call out a deep Hank Williams cut or a Journey song, and they can do either, and they do it. And most people down there do it really well, and I don't. And I have friends down there that are making $10,000 a month, you know, extra playing downtown. And they're like, oh man, you should do that. And I'm scared to death of doing that. I don't like being in crowds. And to me, that Lower Broadway area looks like COVID soup to me right now.
Yum.
But yeah, yummy. But beyond that, I just don't have, I can't do what they do. And I think I could, my ears are big enough where I could probably stumble through a set or two. But I know like Billy Freeman, he has a touring gig, but he pulled a 12 hours of drumming downtown a couple of weeks ago on one night. Just 4-hour blocks, 3 4-hour blocks, where he was doing like covers and original. And like, he was like, yeah, man, that last one, you're just feeling it out and just following people. And I was like, I don't have the attention span to do anything for 12 hours well.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare day to me.
No, that's terrible. But he probably walked with a couple $1,000s, but like, man, it scares me. So I don't do that, but I do some studio stuff, but not a lot of people know or care. Not a lot of people are hip to me and want what I do, or are aware of it. Some of my friends are the guys, you know, that really do it. I don't think it's necessarily misunderrepresented for good drumming. I think that like there's a lot of men and women that are really playing great that probably could make some great records here that aren't going to get a shot to, for sure. But I do a little session stuff here and there. But most of my bread and butter is touring and occasional lessons. And you know.
Do you have any tips for performing live to a click? Like how to not have it make you insecure or locked up? Or
yeah, I think a lot of people blow it with the click because they approach it from the wrong perspective. And I think that they view it as this thing that is being forced upon them to keep them in time. And the reason I play well the click, and I do, and it's kind of the one thing I'm kind of cocky about, was like, because I'll bury it if I want to. Mm-hmm. and it's low enough in my ears. When I post videos, I reef it, like I crank it in the mix. So specifically, so it's so obnoxiously loud, the drummers can find an obvious, they can see, I want them to see where I'm specifically holding the snare back against it, or what I'm doing with it. Even if I'm just screwing up, I want them to be able to hear it so they can go, oh, well, why did he screw up? I would rather teach that way than just bark. And not the do as I say, not as I do. I'd rather them just see me screw up and go like, oh, I want to post a video at some point. I got to find the right one where it's like, oh, here's me screwing up right here. And here's what I did to adjust my way back to it and get it right. You know, but normally my click is so low in my ears that I only hear it when I'm screwing up. I only hear it when I'm wrong. So I hear it at the top and I hear the count. And when I kick in, I'm only hearing it if I'm playing off of it on purpose or if I'm screwing up, you know. But I view the click as a percussion player. And I'm not trying to sound like cocky with it either. Like, people have their strengths, and I've always played well with a click, partially maybe because of a little bit of the drum corps stuff, but really because I viewed it as help. I viewed it as this wonderful thing that it's like if I had a percussion player with me with perfect time, I'd be like, oh, well, thanks.
Right.
I'll just play to you. Cool. You know, so I don't view it as a competitive thing. I view it as this really wonderful opportunity to have this other thing handle all the heavy lifting, and all I have to do is listen to the singer and the guitar players, and I have to just find a way to make all of this sound good with each other while that keeps me grounded. I can play without it. You know, whenever Jon calls covers, and a lot of times he'll turn around and right before we're done playing one song, he'll come back to the talkback mic and it'll be like, honky tonk man by Dwight Yoakam. I'll just turn around and I'll just like, oh, and I'll be looking down and I'm playing with one hand. I'm spinning my click up to 144 because I know that's kind of where he likes Honky Tonk Man. And before that last song is over, I hit that button with my foot. So it's going. So the clicks are like going off of each other, and then I kill one, and he goes, "Come on, honky tonk!"
Oh wow!
And we jump in, and then I kill that click because I know that Jon, much like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and you know, Tom Petty, Jon likes to speed up, and it's like Honky Tonk Woman. It's like the best sounding rushing song in history. You know, Jon likes to move, and I'll stay with him. I'll chase him and let it. What do I care if it speeds up a little bit? Some jerk sitting in the grandstands and be like, "Good drummer speeding up. He sucks." I fucking care. I don't care. That impacts me on no level. You know, like if he thinks I'm terrible, you should see the DMs I get of people telling me how awful I am. It's amazing.
So
it's amazing how many insults I get from people who would collapse under the weight of my sound check.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like armchair quarterbacking. That's been the big thing for me. You got to do it before you can critique it.
That's the thing, and I have a lot of people that really have no problem critiquing me, and I think to myself, man, I wonder how they would feel standing behind a country artist who at any given time might call any one of the 68 George Strait #1 hits, or the entire body of work of Dwight Yoakam is on deck for, I want to jam this at sound check, because he doesn't like playing his songs at sound checks. We play these big outdoor things where the crowd is waiting in line right over there, like behind the grandstand. And he doesn't want to play songs that he's going to play in 3 hours. He doesn't want to play the hits. So we check the loops and the stuff we need to, for the modern stuff. But then we jam covers. And the other day he called a 38 Special song. Who knows Caught Up in You? Who knows that song? I'll tell you who knows it. 38 Special, and Our Guitar Player. Those are the only people that know that song because the rest of us were blowing it. But Jon calls it out. So, the funny thing is when people are like, oh man, that guy sucks, I can play along with that record. Yeah, you can play along with it when it's providing the time and the weight. But when you are responsible for keeping it in time and playing with all these humans and directing traffic because not everybody's on the same page and you maybe don't even know this song. And sometimes Jon calls those songs in the show. He called a George Strait song that I do not know the other night in front of 10,000 people. And I looked over at Will, who knows every country song in history, and he just went like this. He went, 88, acoustic. And I was like, wow. Dook, 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 dook. And I just looked at him, and he just goes,
that's
and I was like, oh, go to the right cymbal. And then he'll go, he'll point and he'll do like hand. He's like literally doing like the baseball shit. And I was just like, part of me was just like, why don't you?
Yeah, right.
I'll go piss and you come play this song. Like I've had to piss for 5 songs. Why don't you come play this tune? But a lot of people that are really critical, they are armchair quarterbacks. And it's kind of the worst kind because they don't know what they don't know. And they don't want to be like, well, you suck. You're in your mom's basement. There's plenty of great drummers in their mom's basement. I know my favorite drummer in the world plays in a wedding band. Nathan Brown in Northern Virginia. And I love him. He's infinitely better than I am. And I've always loved his drumming. And so I'm not going to dash wedding band drummers are great. There's people in their basements that have never had a gig that are great. But if you're going to critique a live drummer, kind of understand what he's doing. I've heard people be like, yeah, I mean, Freese is okay. No, Freese is not okay.
Yeah, he can hop on a plane and play with anybody, right? That's the gig.
Yeah, Freese isn't okay. Freese is exceptional at his job. He's not okay.
Yeah, I heard someone complaining. They had tickets to see Sting, and it was with Josh and not with Vinny, and they were complaining. I'm like, it's the same level, just more punk rock. I mean, it's the exact same level. And
if anything, I mean, I didn't see them with Sting. I'm friends with Noel, who teched for both of them, and the Sting crew was stupid enough to not have him back now or whatever. But like, I think that with Freese, like I would, I didn't see that show, but I was thinking, oh, well, you're probably getting more like the Police feel on most of this stuff, right? Because, Freese is on the front side of the beat, which is funny when I've had people be like, yeah, man, I like to hold it back like Josh there. And it's like, Josh just never held anything back. Josh sits on the front he's on the edge of his seat eating popcorn. Like he's not holding it back. But like, I would think that like those Police songs especially would just feel like the Police, so people like that are stupid. Yeah. You're not getting Vinny, but so what? You're getting Josh, you're getting that cut off Regatta de Blanc that sounds amazing because Josh is doing it, Yeah, they're different animals. Do you not like apples or oranges? What? People are stupid.
So you kind of led me down to this question. What is required at the pro level from the drummer? The pro touring, big stage, big room, big production.
Well, I don't know if it's required, but I know what makes it good. I know the ones that are doing it well and the ones that are men and women that are getting called back and getting other gigs. They almost all of the ones that I respect and that I like have a conversational style of drumming where they are listening to the other musicians on stage. They are interacting with the click on a very organic level, and they are impossibly well prepared. The last one might be the only one that really is required. You're not going to wing it. You think you can, you can't. You think the guys that are, even if you go see Animals as Leaders, or you go see like, pick anyone with like a monstrous drummer, you go see Mono Neon or whoever, you see this, what you think of, or Adam Deitch or whatever, you see these guys that are, is it Deitch? It's Deitch, right? I don't know him, but screw that guy, he's really good. You get all, you see these improvisational people playing and you're like, or Nikki Glasper or all these, you see all this stuff and you're like, oh man, they're really just winging it. No, No, they are not. They are winging this moment of music, but their vocabulary that they have developed, they're not guessing at this lick halfway through it, or this pocket, or this beat. They have developed a vocabulary to where even when they are theoretically winging it through a song, they know what their body is doing and they know how they're interacting with that music. It's the same with like watching people play jazz. And you're like, oh man, Juliana's winging it, or real bop, like old school guys. No, they weren't. They were improvising, but it's not like they were creating. There were a few moments in the night where new vocabulary was being created by a mistake, or they really went for something. But as a general rule, they were aware of what their voice was capable of, and they were speaking with it. And I think the prep that goes into that is kind of the paramount thing. And a lot of people don't get that touring, if they really want to be a touring drummer, what a lot of people really don't get. And there are people in Nashville that are like drum coaches and like, influencing, people that really go out of their way to present themselves as like, oh, I'll tell you how to do this, that don't work and never, and have, but in very short spurts, and just never were able to keep gigs. What people don't get is the most simple aspect of touring is this: you are not paid for the show. The show you give for free because you're lucky enough to play drums for a living. You are paid for the other 22 and a half hours that you are not home with your partner, your pets, your bed, your food, your friends, your house. You are paid for the trouble of not being at home and not doing something else. That's what Jon pays me for. He pays me to not stay home and play on somebody else's record, or not stay home and have dinner with my girlfriend or my daughter, or pet this puppy next to me. Like, he pays me to not do stuff. I give him the show for free. And when you're on a bus, I'm lucky. I'm on a bus with condo bunks and 6 other dudes, just the band. Real easy. But even with just 6 people, you can take up a lot of space sometimes. You're in a bad mood, you take up a lot of space in a 200 square foot rolling tube. Yeah. And as grumpy as I seem online and as sardonic as I am in public, on the bus, pretty quiet. I watch TV. I don't read because it makes me sick, but I'm on the phone, or I'm, messing around with Instagram or whatever. But like, if you're a jerk, you're not keeping work. So that's kind of more important than playing on the road. I think it's important to understand kind of the nature of it and what you are. There's a lot of people that want to do it that aren't prepared to give up what they need to give up to do it. Yeah. I sleep in a really awfully uncomfortable bed 200 days a year.
Right.
So, but it's great, but you have to know what that is. And playing is only a very small part of it. And I think the only part that you really must do if you want to be a touring drummer is understand the value of preparation, and understand the value of interacting with other humans, in a very calm, keeping things cool. Those are the 2 biggies that don't really have anything to do with, licks.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, when you screw up, what is the tolerance of a screw up at that level? Like,
for me or for my artist?
Let's go both.
For my artist, the biggest thing you can screw up is making him wait more than 3 or 4 seconds with silence before a song is starting. He will lose his mind. He wants the songs. I am starting songs before the last ones are over, typically.
That's intense.
The counts of the next song. Like, if you come out, we'll talk after this, but I have a show in Pennsylvania. It might be too far from you, but when you do come out to a show and you listen to my mix, I'll see you laughing at times, because you'll hear like the guitar player finishing a song and I'm killing the click and the loops, and I'm launching the next song before they're done. So you can hear me counting in a following song, just so they go like this.
That's intense.
So for him, there is no tolerance. And when you get to a certain level, and where we're at, if you hit the rim, or you do the you do the stick thing and you don't hit and you miss a backbeat, and it happens once a month or so. You know, when that happens, you see 3 heads out of the corner of your eye do that. Like,
make sure you're all right.
Like, you know, everyone hears everything. You know, the bigger you get, the higher up, and that's what I was trying to kind of convey when I posted that video of Bear swapping out my snare. When you get to a certain point, it isn't that it's more important or that the money's that much greater or that you're a hot shit. It's just that the bigger the shows get, your penalty for failure is greater. You embarrass an artist in front of 10 people, he might be mad or she might be mad. You embarrass him in front of 30,000 people, you're fired.
You might be going home. Yeah.
You know? So you really, the penalty gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just more embarrassing. That's why it's infuriating for me when other people set me up for failure with doing something poorly, right? But for me, my tolerances, there are none. Like, if I make one mistake, it's can't be an A+ show anymore.
Have you ever had an A+ show? A perfect 10?
Have I ever had a perfect 10? No. I don't think I have. I think I've probably had a 9. I've had a couple. There are those shows, and I know you felt this, and people that are listening, I hope have felt this at some point. There are some times when you're playing, it doesn't necessarily need to be in a crowd, it doesn't need to be in front of thousands of people. It could be in your house. It could be, you know, on a friend's kid. There are those moments that happen sometimes where it doesn't feel like you are playing, where you're like, I cannot screw up. It's all perfect, you know, and you feel like it's just this pure natural thing. That doesn't happen often, but when it does, that feels as much like a perfect 10 as it can. But inevitably, I'm so scrutinous of things that, like, if I waver a little bit when I wasn't planning on it, to me, that is a mistake. Or that is a failure. And it doesn't ruin the show for me. I'm just like, you fat bastard. Like, I put a little tick, tick. I have a little clicker like they had back in the old drum corps days where like, but I think I now my average show is probably like a 7 or 8. Like I don't really have big screw ups. And when they do, they're like technical failures or whatever, but I don't think I've like spazzed out and like locked up or something in decades. Like I think that the more but I think that's also not like look at my big, you know, look at me, I'm kicking ass. I don't think that's an arrogance thing. I think it's just it's the 10,000 hours bit, right? You know, so I think just, you know, ask the guy that is doing all the best lawns, or ask the person doing all the best lawns in the city, you know, with the biggest landscaping company, ask them how hard it is to get it done. You know, they're gonna be like, I'm pretty damn good at it. You know, because they do 50 a day or whatever, 10 a day for, you know. So I think that's just I have the opportunity to rep like the guys and girls, men and women that play Broadway stuff. You know, when you're doing that show for 10 years, you're probably unlikely to really shit on anything. I really only make mistakes when it's like new songs, you know, stuff like that, you know, covers that come up. But Jon is very, my artist is very cool about, like, you know, when he calls a song, he knows I don't know. Like, it's got to be funny. It's got to be a little funny. There's a lot of fun. It's not all like tension. As a matter of fact, very little of it is tense. You know, he'll laugh at those. He'd be like, boy, you better get this ending. You know, and I'll blow it. And he'll be like, nah, $10. You know, no cookie. He turned around the other day and went, no cookie for you. And, you know, so it's actually pretty good. But I think I don't know that I've ever had a perfect show. I played inebriated a lot in the 90s, so I may have had one back then that I don't drink anymore, but I may have had a couple of good ones back then.
Do you have any tips or strategies for having a short memory for that kind of stuff and not letting it ruin your night?
You mean for letting it go?
Yeah, like something happens and then not letting that derail the rest of the gig. Yeah,
let it go. It's gone. Yeah. You played it. You played a wrong note. You played a bad fill. It's over. Fix it as fast as possible. Get everybody happy. and then be done. I mean, it's easy to say that. That's as easy as saying, "Oh, you're in a bad mood. Get over it. Cheer up." It doesn't really, it's not as easy as that, but it is something where you have to acknowledge, at least to yourself, that if you're playing music, whether it's for a living or not, that if you're playing it and you make a mistake, you can't roll back time and fix that mistake any better than you could go back to the 8th grade and pass chemistry.
Right.
Like you can't. A mistake is a mistake, and it exists in infinite world now. But there you go. You're getting a call. But it's gone. It's a moment that has now occurred. Mm-hmm. Oh, my tire blew. I wish I could go back in time and change. Not blow my what? Fix your damn tire and keep coming. You know what I mean? So I kind of view it as that. There are times when I can get kind of like, oh man, it upsets you a little bit, but you have to stay present and realize that you are still doing your job, and all you will do is make things worse if you continue to think about the thing that is making you upset. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's hard to kind of kick out of that, but the biggest thing is you have to stay present in the moment that is occurring now, not the moment that occurred moments ago. Mm-hmm. At least with music. It's hard to do in an argument with somebody, but easy to do with music, at least for me.
I've had the opposite happen where I'm like, oh man, this is going great. And then boom, something derails it. As soon as I start thinking about it, it's like having a good dream. You're like, oh, this is cool. And then as soon as you realize you're dreaming, you wake up.
I've absolutely had those moments. And again, I think it's repetition. And the more you can kind of prepare for mistakes, mm-hmm. I'm redundant. Like I have a foot pedal with a Boss click DB88 or whatever. I have an extra click on my SPD. If the SPD goes down, I look at John, I kill the tracks, or I look at Bear. Bear has an iPad that he can kill it and start it from his world. My monitor guy has another rig where he can just hit the space bar and kill it. I have all I have to do is just hit a button and talk. I'll just kill everything. And in my playback, on my talkback mic, I'll go, Ableton's dead, follow me, click. And everybody just gets in line. And I think, again, it's reps. Mm-hmm. Anyone unwilling to do the reps, and that's a big problem with like I don't mean to be the old guy being like the youth, but that's the big problem with Instagram drumming, is that nobody wants to put in the reps to actually do it well. They want to get all the notes, but all the spaces in between the notes don't mean anything to them anymore, and they don't realize that the only way to make those right is reps. Mm-hmm. I can rep through that paradiddle thing with the two notes at the end of the foot. The hot lick that everybody mm-hmm. just kind of does everywhere. You don't have to rest in between those notes. Yeah. So it really just ends up being like a string of, absurd loudness, But like, if you don't have to practice those rests, well then you're gold. You just get faster and faster and faster. But if you don't rep, time with the click, and you don't really pay attention and really spend some time earning your stripes and your scars, you're never going to really get at it. There's a lot of there's a really good technical drummers, but really aren't good drummers in my opinion. Mm-hmm. They're flashy and they got a couple 100,000 followers and everybody loves them, and but I would literally can't think of anything I would want to listen to less than their playing. And that's because I can tell that they don't care about the space. Mm-hmm. All they care about is the violence, and what's that? That's not really drumming.
Man, there's so much more we could talk about that. I gotta wrap it up soon, but yeah, how did you develop the ear to hear that stuff? It took, for me, years of very slow practice.
It takes years, and that's what people don't want to hear. They want their money and their fame now. Mm-hmm. And they don't, I've had 20-year-olds ask me literally look me dead in the eye, pay me for a lesson, give me $100, basically so they can not pay attention to what I'm teaching them. And at the end, take a picture for their Instagram and ask me how they can get where I am, but earlier. They don't want to be as old as I am when they get there.
Of course.
It's like, yeah, there are 25-year-olds that can do what I do, but they were very diligent, very lucky, or very, very naturally talented.
Yeah. Yeah.
One or the other. Now, I've been the first one, a lot of the first one, some of the second one, and the least of my skills are the third one. Now, to be fair, I never couldn't play drums. First time I ever sat down, I just, for whatever reason, could play time. But I don't have the natural ability of, you look at a guy like Benny Greb and you think, there's no way he was ever bad at this. Like, he couldn't have been, right? But you can also see the diligence, and I've met him, and he's like, the kindness pours out of him, and he's like very intellectual, and you can see that he put his time in, there's no quick way to get really great at this. You can get really great at drums, but you can't get great at music without spending some time with it, without listening to stuff. Right now, man, I'm 50 and I've spent this year trying to figure out how the hell Mitch Marine and everybody that ever played for Dwight made it feel like that. Because if you think you can play a Dwight Yoakam song correctly, you're wrong. It's just, you can't, it's kind of like, and people are like, it's kind of like, what interests me isn't the stuff that I can do. Like, if somebody's like, oh man, can you play no disrespect to, Travis Barker, but can you play that Blink-182 song? Of course I can. Can you play that Frank Zappa song? Yeah, you can play that one. I have a really hard time with that middle section of Keep It Greasy, but I can probably do a big chunk of Catholic Girls. But what that doesn't interest me, because that's just learning the parts. Yeah. The feel of stuff interests me. And if you want to dig, that's why it infuriates me when you see like that there was some jerk that made a real asinine post about Charlie Watts being a bad drummer. Oh gosh. The day after he passed away. And it was like, here's the thing. If you think that Mick Fleetwood, Charlie Watts, Ringo, if you think these people aren't phenomenal drummers because you can play the notes that they play, besides being an idiot, you have a great deal to learn about feel. And to me, notes don't interest me, and the feel of stuff does, because I've tried to cop all three of those drummers, and I can't do it. I can play every single note that Charlie Watts, Ringo Starr, or Mick Fleetwood has ever done, and I am 100% sure, especially at the ages they are now, I'm 100% sure I can do it faster and stronger and blah, blah, blah. And I can't make it feel right. I can't play Honky Tonk Woman and make it feel right. I have tried. I've tried to tune my kick drum like that, and B, I've tried to play the song and I can't do either. And a lot of people kind of miss that. And that, to me, that's the biggest thing. You have to put the time in. And of course they feel like that. Now, Charlie Watts, it wasn't like he was 70 when we recorded some of his classic songs, but it was him. So for me, a lot of people don't kind of get that you have to be present. You have to love the instrument, not the fame and shit that comes along with it when people toast your narcissism on Instagram. That if you're in it for that, you're never going to actually be good. You're never actually going to be anybody worth hearing. You might be busy. You might get some clinics. You might be celebrated on Instagram. There's a kid here that has 60,000 followers, whatever. He's super fast. Nobody works. Last time I saw him, he was asking me how to boost his, people's awareness when he was my waiter. And no disrespect to that. I'm being a smart ass, but that's honest work. Do it. Be a waiter and get your gigs, and do it. But don't try to jump the line because Instagram will allow you to, because you'll jump the line for a minute. That's my problem with I want to be supportive of all of the non-white males that have dominated the art form. I want to be supportive of my friends that aren't that. But I will support the people that are playing. It's not good enough for you to be cute or have a halter top or have a cool tattoo or have a weird look. It's not good enough for me. I'm not going to celebrate that. I love cute kids, and I love, that everybody of every age, sex, genre, gender, religion. I love how inclusive drumming is, but I'm not going to promote and cheer for you for cuteness or sex appeal or interesting. If you were playing drums and putting the work in, I will promote you, and I will celebrate you, and I will try to help, and I will listen to it, because that's the stuff that I like. I don't like the flashy stuff. I like flashy stuff if it's part, but if it's just that, I don't care. And there seems to be a lot of people that are unwilling to wait and be patient and earn. There's a certain way people play when they have scars.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And there's a certain way you play when you've slept in the back of the van in Boston in February because somebody has to because you drew the short straw and somebody has to sleep with the gear.
Right.
And when you're laying in the back of that van and it's 12 and you can't leave the idle on all night because you need gas to, when you're bundled up in your sleeping bag and you're guarding the gear all night in Boston and you're 23, you really start thinking about whether or not you want to do this for a living. You have those, I guess some people call them come to Jesus moments, but you have those discussions with yourself that night and the day you realize you can't pay for health insurance and the day you realize you don't have enough money to cover rent. Like when you struggle for several years to make something happen, I think you respect it more. And I think without having to have those conversations with yourself and really ask yourself, am I good enough to do this? Am I strong enough to do this? Do I have anything to offer anyone? You have to face that fear of being a fraud, And if you're never faced with that because everybody's just shining you on because your sticks are cool and you're fast, like, cool. You never have to face it like a handful of people will employ you and they basically employ you to play solos all night and you're probably going to get fired in a year. And a lot of those people that are like that, they call me and all of my friends in Nashville asking if there's work.
Of course. Yeah, if you're asking that question,
they all do. They got 200,000 followers and everybody's like, yeah, they're great. And those dudes, they're calling us. They're DMing blind. They're unsolicited DMing drummers in Nashville, like, yo, man, is there any gigs coming out of there? And it's like, not for you. Not for you.
That's deep. I think about that a lot. Like, jump in the line. Like, you're expecting stuff to be handed to you, and you haven't played on Broadway or whatever it may be. You haven't put in your hours. You haven't driven 12 hours to play for 3 people. That stuff.
Well, and hey, all due respect to the content creators that are making a life for themselves without having to do that. That's fine. I know that the Drumeo dude posted a video about that, like one time, being very kind of indignant about the concept that you had to work for it. And, this is just the same kind of work, creating content. No, it's a different kind of work. It's not the same kind of work. It's not putting in the same kind of hours. It's not earning the same kind of calluses. It is understanding. I built my own hammer and I understand how hammers work. And I built this machine that hammers for me. So I put in the time. It's still not the same calluses as the carpenter that swung a hammer for 12 years. So it's a different art form. It's a different set of skills. That guy isn't much of a teacher or a drummer, but he's obviously a great marketer. Okay, well, that's a different set of skills. And he's great at promotion. He's great at like understanding hashtags and stuff. I mean, I don't understand any. I'm finally getting okay at it because JoJo is teaching it to me. But like, okay, this guy has a set of skills. Okay, well, call it what it is. Don't try to pretend that your set of skills is the same set of skills that are mine. We are different animals.
Right.
So tell me, go ahead. Tell someone. That's why I have a problem with people that are like, learn how to be a pro touring drummer in 10 days. Can't be done. Sorry. That's a stupid thing. Instead, teach a class on internet and on hashtags and on promotion. Do that. And if you want to do like beginner's lessons on here's how you hold sticks, well, okay, he can probably do that. But when he's in there trying to, here's how you play Africa or Rosanna. No, that isn't.
Right.
That isn't at all how Rosanna goes. It's the notes, but nothing else is right. And if Jeff were still here, he would try to explain that to you. He would be like, and it's not like, but he probably wouldn't do it well. But that isn't what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're teaching. It's literally the equivalent of going like, here's how you make cupcakes: egg, milk, flour, sugar, and you put icing on it after it bakes. That's what most Instagram lessons about drumming are. They're kind of blurting out the ingredients, and they're kind of giving you an idea of it'll have to be baked, but at what temperature and for how long. I just wing it. And there's some sort of icing on top. But like none of it is very comprehensive and cohesive, and I know that, I hope that by the time this comes out, it's been announced, but I'm doing basic. And I was telling Eric Hughes that like, I want to make my clinic like 50 minutes of basically how to steal my job. Like 50 minutes of like, here's everything you need. Just do this, and you can come to Nashville and literally steal my gig. If you're like, come do it. If you can take it, if you can take my gig from me. And I tell this to people, they're like, hey man, there's guys in Nashville who like tell people to not come. I've had people introduce themselves to me and be like, yeah man, I talked to so-and-so, and he was like, yeah, there's no work there. No, there's work here. What they don't want to say is the truth of it is, if you can come to town and you can take my job from me, it's yours. I work really hard to do it well. But if you want to move here and you can convince Jon that he needs to fire me and hire you, then by all means, it was yours to have. There is work, but
that's some Jedi stuff, right? You got to train your disciples to beat you.
You got to, and what? Why wouldn't I? And even if they're not disciples, even if they don't care about who I am, if they stumble into that room or see it online or something, I want somebody to go like, oh yeah, putting your backup pedal right next to your primary pedal to where it can still hit the edge of the head. If this one dies, that's way smarter than leaving it 6 feet behind you on the edge of the riser. Right. So when your pedal breaks, you got to do that bullshit where you play the kick drum pattern on your floor tom and you lose an entire limb. That's way smarter. Like, why wouldn't I want everyone to adopt that?
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
It's easy. What am I going to hide that? Like, oh, that's my trick. It's stupid. I don't feel that way about anything. Like, I will give away every secret I have if somebody's willing to ask me. People have asked me, how do you do this thing? And I'll give them a lesson right there at the county fair. Like, I have no compunction to like hide some secret, code.
What I've learned over the years, maybe you agree, is doesn't matter what the secret is. You still have to do the effort. You still have to put in the time. So the ultimate secret is you're not willing or able to put in the tedious work that is required to do this. Think
about like the magicians and like card. There's a drummer in town named Asa Wiggins, and I know that he plays for Tennille Towns. And I didn't know this about him when we toured together, but I saw this video the other day of him doing he was doing like a magic trick with cards or a card trick or whatever. And I was like, I'm always thrilled by like magicians and card guys, because it's like, it's a skill that I don't have, but he could show me what he's doing and I still couldn't do there's still some stuff you got to do. Right. So to me, everything is like that. Chefs are like that. I saw, it was like Kat Cora, I forget her name. I think it was that, but I saw a thing on the masterclass series that I have where she was doing this amazing dish or whatever. And I was trying to like oh, I can make that vegan for me and JoJo. And I was thinking about it. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't have a clue how she's doing like 9 of these things. But she's got these 30 years of history and of reps. You know, and I'm not bitching and saying, look, everybody has to put in the 30 years. You only get to be successful at 40. But like, there seems to be an entire, like this whole like blindness to putting in any work other than whatever will get you likes. And that to me is kind of missing all the, you're going to miss all the joy. That's kind of like if somebody, well, I have plenty of metaphors, but you know, there's a beauty to the long arc of something. There's a beauty to meeting someone and talking to them and being excited by them, and then moving on to the bigger things and bigger things. If you just ran into each other and started pulling clothes off, it's like you miss a lot of this stuff. You know, and cooking is like that. That's why we don't even have a microwave, because there's a part of the beauty of eating is what went into it. You know, and I feel that way about drumming. I feel that way about it, you know. There's metaphor after metaphor, but if somebody just like blurted out the point of Ernest Hemingway or Cormac, you know, the road was about the desolate future and everybody dies. Well, yeah, that's kind of the road. That's kind of the road. You've also missed all these amazing sentences that Cormac McCarthy, you know, carved out of stone on the way to this desolation. And it isn't about that. When you start reading it, it isn't about the desolation. It's about other things because of the nuance in the word. You know what I mean? And there's nuance to drumming that it just so readily gets missed, even just playing time. And that's why there are still idiots out there like, Charlie Watts, I guess Ringo's the worst drummer now. And it's like, oh, you stupid.
That's
like,
terrible.
You're just an idiot. What I'm sure people love playing music with you. If you play the way you think, I'm sure you're really fun to play bass to. You know?
Oh man. All right. Last question. What was your first snare drum?
Ludwig Acrolite.
Still have
Pawn
it?
shop. No, it was in a case that was stolen out of a storage unit in a rehearsal space or storage unit in LA. And in that case were 4 drums. I can't wait to see your face with it.
Oh God.
One case, and in that case was the very first run of the Dunnett titanium single flange hoops, a Aot Keplinger, remember those?
Oh yeah.
And my Welcome, I was with Peisty long ago, and I had a 2002 snare drum, one of the
No, you didn't.
one of the deeper ones that are really hard to find. I can't remember how I acquired it, but it was like, I had the 8-inch.
Oh my God.
Really hard to find. Or there was a 6.5. It was the big one. It was the deep guy. And in that last slot was my first Acrolite that I had in the case with the Billy Gladstone pad.
Oh yeah, vacuum
and
pad.
And the really awful stand in that book with the
Yep.
with the guy. It was like, I forget who it was, but it was that snare I got in the 5th grade.
Wow.
In Unionville, Virginia, where I went to middle school or grade school. And that snare was in that $20 snare drum was in there with like these really expensive drum, and they were gone. And none of them, it was pre-internet. So it wasn't as easy as going like, hey, these 3 really rare drums just got stolen from me. They're going to pop up in a pawn shop somewhere in LA, or somebody rolled into Pro Drum 2 days later and sold those things for $3,000 each.
Yikes.
Probably.
Wow. I was trying to end on a positive note.
It was an Acrolite, and that's why I loved my first kit was a beat up old marble Ludwig kit from I think it was like early 70s, probably late 60s, early 70s. And I had the worst thing. I have a picture of it, and I'll send it to you if I can find it. Oh, man, it's too bad I didn't know this was coming, because I had a drum. I think it was a split shell. I can't make the picture big enough to see, but I think it was a split shell, like 20s or 30s Ludwig.
Oh wow!
And I didn't know shit about shit, and I was using it as a timbale.
Of course.
And I ended up throwing it away, I think, because I didn't like it, because I thought it was broken because it looked bent where the snares.
Oh,
remember how they crimped it?
Yeah.
And I was a dumb kid, and I think I have it in here. I'm looking for it. And I thought, oh, well, it's broken. It's dented. And I threw it away.
Wow.
So, but my first one was actually a Ludwig Acrolite, and that was why it was wonderful when I finally went home to. I can't find it. I'm gonna send it to you, and you're gonna laugh at it. But yeah, it was good for me when I finally kind of went home to Ludwig, and Uli was like, "Hey, join the roster." I was like, "Cool." I started with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had every kind of kit. I've had a Tama Imperial Stars, which were awesome, and I had like some Pearls and stuff. And funny thing is, I'm friends with everybody at Pearl, like Farquharson and Flat and those guys. It's literally right down the street from my house. Mm-hmm. So we pop in there to say hi all the time, and I just happen to be on Ludwig's roster. So I mean, but it was nice to go home to Ludwig, and I would like to. I told Stanky when I signed with Sabian, I was just like, man, I really just, you're not going to fire you, are they? Because I really just want to. Like, I'm tired of idiots getting rid of people that are great at their job and I love. Like, you're going to be there for a while, right? And he was like, yeah, I think I'm good. And I was like, cool. I don't want to stack up endorsements, and I don't want a bunch of different drum sets. I have two. Yeah. I have the one here and the one on the road. I don't want 100 snares. I don't want different cymbals. I just want people that I like to work with me, and we help each other. Mutual, like a mutual arrangement where I promote them and they help me out with my gear so I can stay on the road. And I just want that. I want no drama. I don't want to like, ooh, this stick company's cooler. Or this drum set. So like when you're talking about the top of the line kits or any of the kits, like,
yeah, take your pick, right?
I mean, when you're in the $3,000 range for a drum set, it's probably not going to suck. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you like? Do you want this mod tone, or do you want this vintage thing or whatever? Because I went with Ludwig because of certain reasons. I wanted it to sound a certain way for me. But like, I want to be tight with my people. Mm-hmm. I love that I can call Uli and just be like, yo, man, what's up? And we don't necessarily have to talk about drums. And when I text him, I was like, hey, I got this clinic coming up. He's like, man, I got you. It's cool. Just hit me up. I talked to Chris Brady the other day, and we talked for, an hour. And the last 3 minutes of it was like, do you have any Super 2s laying around?
Right.
I like that. Mm-hmm. So I was happy to go I started with Ludwig. I was happy to hopefully end, with Ludwig. I mean, I'm 50. I got some time left to keep playing drums. I like these drums. I like them so much. I'm not getting him to replace the drums I already have.
Oh, yeah.
He's literally been like, do you want a kit yet? And I'm like, nah. What, I need 10 drum sets? I'm not doing any drum camps at my house. I don't need 10 kits.
Yeah. Oh, man.
10 kits. If I have 10 kits, 8 of them are going to sit in the corner.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a little bit of that problem here.
I don't have the room either. We have a small house, a lot of animals. My daughter's living here for now, and so I don't have anywhere. I don't know where I would put 5 drum sets. Mm-hmm. I bust Jeff Brown's balls all the time. He's like 40 snare drums, and I'm like, what? You only have 2 hands.
That's true. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great. We went 90 minutes deep. Thank you.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I talk a lot. I still have to work out. JoJo's over here on workout clothes. Like, let's go. Let's work out, man.
That's it for the episode this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please give us a review over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Drop us 5 stars. Leave a couple comments. Share it if you dig it. The show's growing. I would like to see it keep building steam. So thank you again for listening. And I'll see you next week. Have a good one.